I'll introduce Pippa. So just before I hand over to Pippa, just a few reminders on some events that are coming up. So some of you who are familiar with the Independence Group, that's taking place on the 11th of December at 2:30. We are running a networking event with a mentoring group next week, and Tony and a few others on the call will help run that session. It's quite a different event that we've run in the past on mentoring. So please join us on that if you're interested. A great topic on resilience, which I'm sure pretty much all of us will benefit from in some way or another. And Terry Strether will take us through that in January. And then in February, a follow-on from the first HR Essentials, which was run last month, I believe, and this one being our performance management in February. So a few events there to look out for. And of course, there are other events that are run by our other branches that you may get notifications on from newsletters as well. So please look out for those too. So hope you're all keeping well and looking forward to this event, so I have pleasure in introducing Pippa. Pippa runs her own business, and a quick introduction, and I'll allow Pippa to share a little bit more. Pippa's company and organisation really supports organisations to connect training with business goals. Been running a business and working in the space around on marketing and commercial for 20 or so years, and brings that depth of experience to helping learning and training events really resonate with business strategies and goals. And you can look Pippa up on LinkedIn and connect with her as well. But for today, we're all going to experience how to network like a pro. And without any further ado, I will hand over to Pippa.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. And thank you all so much for inviting me here today. I feel very honoured for your festive networking session. This is going to be all about making you feel more relaxed and confident as to get the most out of your networking as you go through this festive period and beyond. So be that, at the moment, obviously, we're all just networking online, but there will come a time when we can get back in rooms. So I have made it so that we can apply everything to both elements. So as Manish just said, I've got over 20 years commercial background in marketing, strategy and communications, and that's really where I began. So I've done a lot of networking, and I can honestly say that I really, really enjoy it. It's an aspect of my working life that I've always loved. But I know very well that for a lot of people, it's a bit more like this. They kind of go along and they do it because they feel that they should, but don't always feel madly comfortable. So that's fine. Wherever you are on that scale, I'm here to make you feel a bit more confident and relaxed and make networking as enjoyable as possible rather than a necessary evil. So let's start at that beginning, because as I said, whether it's virtually or in person, the principles do really apply both ways. So first of all, let's just face some of our fears. These are some common concerns that people often say to me about networking. I won't know anyone, I'm going to feel awkward, it's not worth my while, you know, I'm nothing to add, that sort of imposter syndrome. And we can sometimes really talk ourselves out of it, or only go to networking groups where we already know everyone, which is nice, but of limited sort of help to us. So let's run a quick poll and see. I know that there'll be other reasons that people might have concerns about networking, but let's, oh, thank you, poll popped up. So let's run the poll to see which one resonates with you most. Which of those is your networking fear? So a bit of imposter syndrome going on there and making sure that it's a good use of time. Okay, quite a good balance, but that imposter syndrome at the moment leading the way. Any more to add? Okay, so that's, yeah, I mean, it's a good mix across the board there. These really are very, very common. Oh, these are very common fears that people have. So I think that's very interesting, though, that I've nothing of value to add. That insecurity, it can really grip us all, even when we're proper, you know, grown-ups who do amazing jobs. There's still that inferiority complex that can really kick in. So let's just go forward and look at how it doesn't have to be a horror show. It doesn't have to be something that we talk ourselves out of or be concerned about. It can actually be something that can very much be your friend and that you can really learn to enjoy. And that's what I want by the end of this session, is for you to feel happier and more relaxed and more confident going forward. So the first thing to know is that these fears are really the result of feeling excluded. Now, I know that a lot of you are in that HR field, and so you'll know all about diversity and inclusivity. And at the moment, I'm doing a lot of training on that. And one thing that really struck me was this was a word cloud from real feelings that people have had when they feel excluded at work. And I looked at that and went, wow, that is how we feel when we network. And I think that that is it. When you're about to enter a room of people, be it virtually or in person, we feel like quite often like we've got to impress them. And these concerns about feeling like an outsider, will you be accepted? They're the very real natural responses that we have just as human beings to not already belonging to that group. So the first tip I'll give you is to just take the pressure off yourself. Honestly, give yourself a break. You're just a human being. And also this is not a very helpful mindset, because if you're saying to yourself, I'm going to fail, that's probably what's going to happen, because you're looking for reasons to fail. Whereas if you can replace those thoughts with things like saying, you know, I'm not alone. Everyone here feels a bit like that, or has done at some time or another. And it really isn't my job to impress people. You know, I'm not a performing seal. I've not been hired to juggle or dance or provide any other form of entertainment. It's enough to be myself. And if I really find that I'm not in the right room with the right sort of people who perhaps are the kind of people who want to meet me and I want to meet them, then it's worth also thinking whether or not it was actually the right event for you. And that's a great learning in itself. And also always remember that you're better than you think you are. We all have these insecurities, and you've got to counteract that and bring the balance back up to go, no, actually, I'm good at what I do, and I'm, you know, a valid human being, and I'm got interesting things to be able to say. So that takes us on to the next tip, which is to know your goal. That sounds really simple, doesn't it? Why would I be here tonight or any other networking opportunity? And really, there is only one ultimate goal, and that's to make meaningful connections with interesting new people. And as soon as you know that, it feels much safer already. It's not to make a sale. Never. No one wants to be sold at by a stranger. That's just downright weird. You know, it's totally inappropriate, and it's not what we're here to do. We're just here to meet interesting people and to make some meaningful connections and to hopefully learn something from them. And when we get our motivation straight, a lot of those fears that we looked at, they can really melt away. So that concept of it's not going to be worth my while, but there's nobody interesting in that room to talk to. Seriously? You know, of course there is. It might be a bit awkward, but it's okay. I don't have to impress everybody. I know that I've got things of value to add because I do a great job and I'm an interesting person. And if I don't know anyone, success, that's great. That means that you're in a room where you can properly network, because networking is not sitting in a video conference or standing in a room with a bunch of people that you already know. That's socializing. It's great. It's got value, but it's not networking. So let's go back to basics. Now that we've got that sorted, let's have a look at what we can do to make your networking more successful, more enjoyable, and to really reduce any residual awkwardness. Now, the first thing that we need to do before any networking opportunity, no matter how experienced you are, is to build your confidence so that you'll go into that session with your head in the game and giving off the right vibes of kind of a relaxed confidence. Now, as you'll probably be aware, only about 7% of our communication is actually verbal. So if one of your fears was not knowing what to say, this is quite good news. So that leaves a colossal 93% that's sort of body language and the tone, pitch and tempo of your voice. And there's a lot that we can do with that. Tip number 1 is to think about your posture. Now, when we sit up or stand up straight, we automatically engage certain physiological responses. So when we sit up and put the shoulders back and down, we open the chest, we expand the lungs, we breathe more deeply, and that has a calming effect. It also lifts our head and our eyes to look up and look people in the eye, not be looking down at the floor. It's nothing like video networking with the top of someone's head just here. And this actually gives our brain signals which say, I'm ready, I can do this. There's a proper physiological chemical response in your brain as well as the rest of your body. So when you're on a call like this, own your space, wriggle your bottom back, sit back firmly in the chair, lift your shoulders and take a deep breath before you even go into the room. Can you feel a difference if you do that now? If you kind of really sit up straight rather than slouching? Okay. So we're doing that, but also it works when you're in a room. So the same applies, own your space. Before you go into a room, if you pause and stand with your feet slightly apart, so you've got a really nice steady base to literally push off from, you're going to feel more secure and more confident. Put your shoulders back, stand up straight, head up. That will open your chest. You're taking a few deep breaths and you'll walk into that room with that quiet air of confidence rather than shuffling in sort of apologetically. Now, the next one is to make eye contact. Now, I would say if you've not got your video on, put it on, please, because we're all here to network and meet each other. And that's very difficult if you're just a name on a screen. So it would be great if we could pop some more videos on if you haven't already got it on. Look, my place isn't perfect. You know, we're all used to going into rooms. You can put a virtual background on if you want to, but it's really important to be able to meet people and make eye contact. And when we do this, this instantly tells the other person 2 things. One is that you've got a connection, we're looking at each other, and the other is that you're ready to listen. And that's very important, especially on video conferencing, and also obviously when you're face to face with people. And if you are walking in face to face, then look out for someone else who's looking around, because it's going to be so much easier to catch their eye. And then you've got someone to walk over to and start talking to, and they'll probably be delighted that someone walked over to them because they were just standing there feeling exactly the same as you. So then when you're on video calls, just bear in mind where you're looking, because it's very tempting to look away, to answer your phone, or just forget that people can see your face. I know I've been guilty of that one. And in reality, without other body language signals that we're accustomed to having, this is even more important. So we really need to make the most of this bit that we're showing. My next tip would be to make sure that you've got really strong eye contact. You need to have your lens in the right position. So if you're on a laptop, you've probably got your lens quite low. It's automatically looking up at you like this, and that can also mean that you get a really great shot right up your nose, which no one wants to network up a nostril. Okay, this is just get it in a nice comfy place, so you're in the middle, you're there, you're happy, you're confident. I can see some screens adjusting. That's fantastic, thank you. And if you lift the camera up to eye level, you might need to put your laptop on a stand or some books if that's the case, but if you lift it up to eye level or even just a touch higher, it means that you look right down the lens, and that lifts your chin again, which makes you sit up straight and keeps that posture throughout. So especially if you're on for a while, that's really important. You get those mental benefits going on. Also, it eliminates my double chin, which I always think, well, I'll take that bonus. What with that and a bit of a zoom airbrushing, it can take about 20 years off. So lift your lens and really be that confident person that people are drawn to when you go into a networking situation. Now, for video networking, you've also got to learn to love the lens, not just have it there. And I think that we all hate being on camera. The vast majority of people do, but we've just got to get over it, really. And one thing to really make that much more comfortable is to think of Cilla Black. So if you're old enough to remember Cilla, and her Laura loves, that's great. But she was, you know, Saturday night legend for a long time. And she was an amazing personality for really exuding that warmth down the camera lens. And the way she did that was she named the camera Bobby, after her husband, who she absolutely adored. So she was always talking to someone that she loved and looking down that lens. And if you love your lens, just practice looking at that light. I'm looking at it now. It feels a bit bonkers. You can put a little picture of your dog there if it helps. Put a picture of your family. Put a post-it saying, smile, look at me. Whatever it is that takes to make your camera lens your friend, just go for it and look down that lens. Which takes us on to the next tip, equally simple but so effective. Just smile. Did you ever see Scylla not smiling? I can't think of a single time. When we smile, it makes an instant connection and it forms a bond. If you try it now, okay, I'm going to show you my natural listening face. Most people's listening faces are, well, they look bored rigid, but it doesn't mean that's what's happening, hopefully, but they do. This is my listening face. Okay, it's not really madly engaging. It looks like I'm quite peed off, to be honest with you. Whereas if I just sit up and smile and make a little bit of an effort, it tells you that I'm actively listening. And now we've got a bit of a rapport, we've got a proper connection. All we've actually done is sit up and smile. The other thing as well is that when you smile, you get an endorphin hit. And when somebody smiles at you, they get an endorphin hit, and it works down the camera just as well as it does in a room. So you've got a real sort of shared chemical reaction going on quite a fundamental level. And in your brain, you've really got a bond going. If you look at the different expressions here on people's faces, I don't know any of these people, by the way, I just took a clip off the internet, but we usually feel a desire to connect with those people who are smiling. Even if we don't know any of them, and it's an equal platform. And that's because suddenly you belong and somebody wants you, you know, someone wants to spend time with you and is being friendly, and that awful feeling of awkwardness quite instantly vanishes because you feel included. So those dreadful words that we looked at earlier, when you feel excluded, they don't count anymore. And the really wonderful thing is that you can make a total stranger feel that. You can make them happier and more relaxed in a networking situation just by making eye contact and smiling, which is really very powerful. So when we look back at our goal now, which was to make meaningful new connections with interesting people, eye contact and a smile and having your camera on and your lens in the right place, that is going to get you a long way there by just improving your body language and the way that you're signaling to another person through your body language. So I think it's time to put some of this into action. Eleanor's going to pop you into breakout rooms and you can meet some new people, which is brilliant. And I'd like you to just focus on getting your posture right throughout. Just try sitting up, looking at the lens. You can share how that makes you feel. You know, how are you feeling if you're looking down that lens of being on camera if you don't normally have it on? And actively listen to each other, encourage each other, tell each other what it makes you feel like when you've got that better response. And we'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. Eleanor, do you need me to stop sharing or can you do it from there?
No, that's fine. I've got the group up, so I'll just move everyone through. And so there's going to be about 5 people in a group. And you say 10 minutes?
Yeah, we've got, I think, 10 minutes, haven't we?
Okay, then.
That's good. Well, those of you who were back a little bit later got to miss my technological glitch, so that's nice. I hope that you all found that enjoyable. Really, really interesting points raised in the group that I was in, especially one about introverts. If you're an introvert and how it is, how far out of your comfort zone it can be to do this anyway in a room, let alone virtually when you're missing all of those social cues that we're used to having. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to chat with a little bit more ease and confidence. We certainly had that thing come up of how do you start? But first of all, seeing as this is exceptional zebra training session, I've got a little zebra fun fact for you. Does anyone know what the collective noun for a group of zebras is? Anyone got a clue? Give it a guess. We're looking very quiet.
Pretty wrong, but I'll say herd.
A herd. It would be nice, but it's far more exciting. I guess that they are a herd.
Your notes are showing at the moment, so there's some of them have cleverly read the.
Oh,
so,
oh no, that's useless. How funny. I like to have my notes there because one of the things that we were also saying was how when you do this kind of presenting, it does feel a bit like you're on your own in a room, and I find that I get lost, so I don't necessarily read them, but I like to know that they're there for me to ignore as well, because yeah, I just find sometimes that I sort of forget when I'm that I'm not actually on my own because you haven't got those cues. Is that better? Okay, right, so there we go. We won't too shocked to know that it's a dazzle. And well, there are many reasons that I love zebras, and their dazzliness is definitely one of them. But I think certainly with this, if you can have that effortless sort of confidence, then you do tend to outshine people in a room. And that's what we want to get. It's that feeling of ease and effortlessness. That's our kind of real sweet spot for networking, where we can just relax and enjoy the process. So we've already learned this evening that, well, how to look and feel more relaxed and confident on Zoom, in our room. Goodness me, I know we're all looking forward to that. Just by using our posture and our body language, we can really make a big difference. So now let's have a look at those words, because I know that that's for all of us a big fear. Now, I love a formula for success, and this one's really easy to remember. It's the 3 A's. Now, credit where it's due. I've borrowed this from a lady called Esther Stanhope, who used to work for the BBC, and now she teaches presentation skills, and she's amazing. Google her, she's great. And the 3 A's that she talks of are audience, authenticity, and awesomeness. So first, audience. You're face-to-face with your new contact. What are you going to do? Now, in that moment, what you really need to do is to love your audience more than you love yourself. So people have a very short attention span generally, and we kind of care about ourselves. You know, it's just how it is. Especially when we go to networking, we want to know, is it going to be worth our while? That was a really common concern. So start off by making the conversation all about them. Besides, you're there to find out about them, and you already know all about you. So you want to get the other person talking. So make them the center of your attention. And actually my favorite opening line, if nothing else springs to mind from the environment, is what brings you here today? Because it's a great line, because it's really relaxed and friendly, and it works online and it works offline, but you're actually saying, so what's important? What kind of people do you want to meet? Maybe they'll what will spring to mind is the biggest business concern that they've got going on. Maybe there's someone in particular that they want to meet. This is networking gold, to be honest with you. It really is, because this is the stuff that you're trying to get to. Have they got contacts, problems, skills, talents, information that's going to be really good, that you can help them with and that you can work together on? So listen carefully to their answers, because it's through that listening element that you really can connect on quite a deep level. And when we talk about our introverts, people who struggle more with networking, introverts tend to be really, really good listeners. So you've actually got a fantastic advantage over extroverts. And I think it's very important to consider that aspect. Now, ideally, you want to find out something that you can do for somebody else, because if you can help them, is there a report that you can direct them to that you've read? Is there someone that you know who you think might be able to help them? Have you had some valuable experience and you can relate to their problem? If you can help them, that's putting your audience first in the most perfect way, and you're really going to get a lovely rapport there. For the second A, authenticity. Now, Oscar Wilde would say, be yourself because everybody else is already taken. And it's a damn good point. it's okay not to know everything. It's okay to make mistakes and share all your notes. It's, you know, it's okay to be human. If someone's talking about something and you don't understand, ask them to explain it in more detail. You're not supposed to be some all-knowing being. It's absolutely fine. You are enough. And you don't need to pretend to be something that you're not, because this is something everyone's tempted to do, I think. But if you do that, you're never going to make a meaningful connection, because the person they're connecting with doesn't exist. Simple as that. If you're not being yourself, who on earth are they meeting? And actually, that was one of the reasons that I called my company Exceptional Zebra, was because you've got to be yourself to your fullest potential to really stand out from the herd and to be able to get the best results. And I think that authenticity is very linked to vulnerability as well. Now, if you've never listened to or read Brené Brown, she's got a great TED talk to start with that's on the power of vulnerability. And she really is a game changer, I think, especially when you come to relate it to networking. So this quote from her: vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's about having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. Now, I was just speaking in my group with a lady who's going to go and set up her own business, having worked for the same corporate for 20 years. That is really vulnerable, and that is really brave, and that is hugely courageous. And I can't imagine anyone not being interested in speaking to someone who's got the guts to do that, because that is really phenomenal. I'm going to give you a little confession now of my most mortifying networking experience. It was a couple of years ago, and I fell over in the middle of the room, by which I mean I went down like a sack of potatoes. I was wearing these really great new red boots, and the heel got stuck in the carpets, and I just went flying. You know, 100 people simultaneously turned round to look at me. And you really don't get much more vulnerable than that. But I tell you what, after I got over the sort of indignity and literal pain in my backside, it was sort of great, because everyone came over to check I was okay, and I met loads of great people. I met really, really wonderful people with this lovely shared sense of values, and the atmosphere in the room changed because everyone had something to talk about. You know, did you see that poor woman? Thank God I'm not her. At least she wasn't holding a cup of coffee. Yeah, it was, I'm not recommending it, but that was mortifying, or it should have been. And actually it turns out into something really positive. And really interestingly, I also learned at that particular moment that I really didn't want to talk to the woman I was talking to, because I was lying on the ground. She didn't offer to help me up. She didn't pause for breath. She just kept pumping me for information. And I was like, that is where you've really got to put your audience first. You know, read the room, look after the person that you're with, especially if they're lying on the floor. And finally, awesomeness. So there are better ways, as I say, to be memorable than going flying in a room full of strangers. But what actually does give someone that charisma? Is it something that you're born with, or is it something that you can actually learn? Now, I've put a lot of research into this, and I think the one thing that charismatic people have in common is effortless confidence, that ability to be authentic and own their own space, but in a very relaxed way, because they don't have to be the center of attention. They've got an air of generosity. They're going to be interested in connecting people with other people, in learning about you, in being interested in making others feel welcome and appreciated. And that's a skill that we can all work on. So I think of it less as charisma and more just of going out of your way to make others feel good about themselves, whilst really embracing what matters to you. So find your own inner awesomeness and embrace it and be proud of it. Today, I saw a great example. Read this on LinkedIn today. Tiger DeSouza is someone that I used to work with. He's fab. And this is very him, that he wrote this about a colleague who is leaving the National Trust. Amy Davis, working with you over the past 3 years has been an absolute joy. You're a brilliant, innovative thinker, never afraid to try something new. As a team, we've made enormous progress and you've been at the heart of everything that we've done. I'm grateful and honoured to have you as a colleague. So does anyone not want to meet Amy? I have no idea who Amy is. I went straight and connected with her and said, wow, you know, you sound like an amazing person. Turns out she's a head of transformation, which kind of makes sense. But I think that you look at that and you see Tiger saying that publicly so sincerely. It's not some kind of humble brag situation. It's from the heart. And I think that we can safely say that Tiger and Amy have found their inner awesomeness. And so can we, if we're just brave enough to follow what our own personal values tell us and what we believe in. Now, I said at the start, networking is not about making a sale, but ultimately it is about business. And we want to make meaningful connections with interesting new people. But within that, it's obviously useful to put your best foot forward and to be able to share with people ways in which you might be able to help them. And it's really important to be able to do this in a way that doesn't bore your audience rigid. So let's just have a little look at how you can make yourself someone that others are interested in knowing, hopefully without boring them rigid or sounding like you're selling at them. So again, I've got a bit of a formula for success here. It's a way to create your non-elevator pitch. So we start with a top line, then evidence, emotion, and momentum. And I want you to think of it as telling your story, not as an elevator pitch. Can you think of anything worse than being sold at in an elevator? I mean, good grief, horrible, just horrible. So your top line is your succinct one-liner. And that's designed to hook someone in. Now, I'm always learning on this as well. I change my one-liner constantly. But here's a for instance of what I might say when I ask what I do. I might say, I make people's lives easier. I take your business problems and I create training programs that are going to help to solve them. And it might not be perfect, but you know, it's a lot more appealing than I provide leadership and performance training sessions. It's, you know, it's a little bit more enticing. And then the next stage is to bring that to life. So we've got to flesh our story out. And a good way to do that, that qualifies who you are as well, is to give a bit of evidence. So something to give you credibility. So for example, I might say, I work with Argos, creating a suite of over 15 training sessions to help their staff during some really, really difficult times they had, periods of transition and when they were being taken over. Worked on areas with them like change management and building resilience, and also a fantastic program to embed culture of diversity and inclusion in there. Now, it's reasonably concise, but it's still a bit dry. So we need to add some more colour in there, and we do that by adding emotion. And that's part of that authenticity, vulnerability aspect as well, being human. So I might say, I felt really proud of what I achieved there. What started out as a one-off project turned into 5 years of working with that team really, really closely, and they smashed their goals as a result. And God, yeah, that was just so rewarding. So that's a little bit more interesting for people. But the final thing is momentum as well. And this is where you're telling them, where do I go next? What's going forward? How do we move this forward? So for example, I might say, the demand from my clients became so high for the kind of training I was creating that I started my own company. I started Exceptional Zebra, and now I've got this amazing job where I help organisations of all sizes. And I might add even more emotion and say, and this is totally true, I love it. And I finally found what I want to do when I grew up. So it only took me about 45 years to get there. So that's super. I know what I want to do when I grow up. So that's sort of how we might look at our story, but a really important thing, and I'm very aware that you're sitting there as my captive audience, and so you have to listen to each stage. But this is your story to hand is a guide. You're not going to blurt it out at them. You need to give them a chance to respond, see if they pick up on, are they interested? Do they want to do, do they want to hear more? Or is their body language telling you that, frankly, that's great, but they're just not that interested? So we've really got to remember that it's a conversation and not a party political broadcast. And if people aren't interested, that's totally fine. You can revert to the conversation of getting them to talk about themselves anyway, because that's really what you want to do. And it's okay not to connect meaningfully with every single person in the room. That's fine. So just before we start our next breakout bits, can you just all take a couple of minutes to just have a little think, just draft a bit about your top line, what your evidence might be, something that you emotionally feel about that, and then where it might be going forward. And it's okay if you don't get to do all of this now, but let's try and get some of your story down just for 2 or 3 minutes, so that you've got something to go into that next session. When someone says, what do? You've got an answer that you feel a bit more comfortable with. And I want you all to smile a bit while you're doing it, because if you smile while you're doing this exercise, you'll relax and you'll release those happy hormones, and that'll make it much easier. So imagine you're telling a friend in the pub what you do for a living, not you're telling a business prospect something that might get them to want to buy you. So I'll just give you all a couple of minutes. Perhaps about got there. Let's just hop into some rooms. Eleanor, do you mind popping people into some rooms and they can just have a little chat with each other, trying to use those stories, just trying to use something from your story, and that would be great.
Okay, so I've got some rooms set up. How long do you want to give them this time? We were aiming for a 7:30 finish, which is why some people are
yeah, no, I saw that. Well, look, should we just do sort of 3 minutes or something like that? And I hope that everyone's found something interesting that they can take forward, and that you feel a bit more relaxed and confident, and perhaps confident in what you're trying to achieve as well, and how you can look to be generous to other people, and that can lead to really, really great things. I've got here all my contact details. If anyone's got any questions afterwards, then please just let me know. That would be super. You get a, connect on LinkedIn or drop me an email, whatever it is that makes you happy. And thank you so much for sharing your Christmas session with me. As a little Christmas present, I'm quite full for the new year, but 10% off anything, any bookings that you make before the next financial year. So just as a thank you very much to all of you. But it's been wonderful meeting such a great new group of people. And thank you very much. I think I should hand back over.
Thanks.
Manish, are you there? Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic session. And thank you for sharing so many tips in such a short space of time. I think the two groups I was with, some of the chat I'm hearing or watching on our chat here and on Twitter, by the way, is just suggesting that I think many of us have taken quite a few tips away, including learning about the plural side of zebras. So I didn't know that. So it's good. So thank you for that. Some real good sound bites for me. And I think that last exercise, I think, just brought home how much we need to be ourselves and bring the emotion into the story as well. So fantastic. Great opportunity for us to all practice over the festive period, I suppose. But just before I finish off, Eleanor, are you about to share a slide? Just as Eleanor is doing that, thank you everyone for joining and participating in today's evening session. I know many of you have also travelled virtually across the border and joined us in Leicestershire, so thank you for doing that as well. Eleanor's just flashing up some reminders around the benefits of being a CIPD member. So there's quite a few there. The CIPD are developing their resources and the services quite frequently, so please go in and have a look and take advantage of those member benefits. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's session, Pippa. I certainly have, so thank you. And thank you for your contributions, everyone on chat as well. I think some interesting posts which I'm going to have a good look through. Are there any questions that we need to answer? I'm not sure without looking, but I'll rely on my colleagues in the branch committee to flag any that we do need to come back to. No, I'm not seeing anything.
The only one I saw was someone was asking who the BBC trainer was, and that's Esther Stanhope, and she's really brilliant. She's got a book out as well.
Thank you. So I think just one final thing for me is I wish you all a great festive break. I think it's been quite an interesting year from a number of angles. Really pleased that you've been able to join tonight's event. We have got the mentoring one next week, and then a couple of events in the new year as well. Stay in touch, stay safe, and yeah, enjoy the time off if you can. So thank you very much. If we're done, are we, Eleanor? Yeah, good.
Yep. Thank you, Manish.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.